Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar titled 7 Ways Backup Makes IT More Productive. I'm Kevin Collins from Unitrends, and I'm here with Mark Jordan, our Vice President of Technology, and he'll be taking us through the presentation. And don't forget, one lucky attendee will be walking away with a $100 Amazon gift card. We'll contact the winner via email after the webinar. But before we get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. The session will be recorded, and after the event, you'll receive an email with a link to the on-demand version of the webinar. I would also encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. You can do so by typing them into the Q&A box in the bottom right of the player. We'll answer your questions at the end of the session. At this point, I'll turn it over to Mark. Enjoy the presentation, and Mark, take it away.
Thank you, Kevin. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We should have an interesting little 30-minute presentation here. And like Kevin said, please ask many questions. So let's kind of go through this presentation here. All right, the key takeaways today, the things that we want to look at is what is copy data management? That is really the topic of the presentation this morning is copy data management. We're going to talk about why it's important. We're going to talk about how to streamline data-intensive reporting and compliance tasks, how to make your IT, DevOps, and application teams more productive, some other cool stuff. Hey, you know what? You might get $100 on a gift card for attending the webinar today, but we're going to tell you how to get a $500 Amazon gift card for attending a webinar later this month. All right, let's get started. So in a nutshell, copy data is created when primary data is copied for secondary purposes, and that can include data protection operations, test and dev, and analytics. I think probably all of you are doing this in your environment today. There's always plenty of reasons to have secondary copies of your data, and we're going to talk about some of those right now. And actually, according to IDC, up to 60% of storage capacity is dedicated to copied data today, and that's getting higher every year. They're estimating in 2018 that this will cost businesses over $50 billion. The thing about using the copy data on the way most people are doing it today is that they're using storage that is their most expensive storage. They typically are using production data storage where they're taking snapshots and keeping copies of that data on that production data storage. So not only are they keeping more and more copies every year, but they're doing it on the most expensive storage that they have. So why is copy data management important? What are people using it for? And why is it important to you? So the questions I'd ask you right now is, do you have recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives? If you do, copy data management is going to be important to you. Do you test them? If you don't test them, we're going to tell you how copy data management can allow you to test them. And do you have compliance requirements? How can copy data management from Unitrends help you meet your compliance requirements? And do you need to quickly spin up environments for dev test or DevOps? Once again, we're going to tell you how the Unitrends solution can help you do that very quickly, very efficiently, and at a lower cost than what you may be doing today. So here's a slide that kind of shows what different companies or organizations are using copy data management for. I'm not going to go through every one here, but you can see that there's things in development, things in operations, there's things in data analytics, and there's things in data protection. Now, traditionally, Unitrends is obviously focused on the data protection side. We're doing backup, we're doing copies for disaster recovery purposes, we're doing corruption protection, the ability to roll back to a backup at a point in time that was before that corruption happened. Today, with ransomware being such a prevalent concern in the world, being able to roll back to a point in time before the malware actually hit. This is what Unitrends has traditionally reported are focused on. Now we have the ability, and we're going to show you how we're doing it, we have the ability to focus on the other three boxes as well, to give you labs that can spin up, to be able to provide that sandbox operation so you can do patch management, and to do analytics where you can spin up systems for someone in your, or another group in your organization where they can analyze the data that sits on systems that you've backed up. Now, the problem with copy data management, when you look at that box that was there before, and we talked about it a minute ago, is the cost of it all. IDC did a recent study that said 82% of businesses have at least 10 copies of any one production instance of data. And once again, when you look at those 10 copies of data that they have, the majority of them have that on their most expensive storage. It's snapshots on the storage where the production data sits. And we go back to that price that we showed a couple slides earlier. Businesses are expected to spend $50 billion in 2018 simply to support their copy data. So here's the question that Unitrends asks. What if you could use backup data to accomplish your copy data management needs? Your backup data is typically on less expensive storage. Typically, it's deduplicated so that even when you have multiple recovery points, it takes up far less storage space than a single copy of the data would, simply because of the deduplication capabilities. The backup data still gives you those recovery points so that you can test data at certain times when the backup was taken. And you have the ability to move that backup data around, replicate to other sides. So you can use copy data management techniques at your primary location, at a secondary location. You can even use them in a cloud location from a Unitrends partner or from Unitrends ourselves. So what if you could use backup data to accomplish your copy data management needs? Well, Unitrends is introducing something called automated provisioning, and it's copy data management using our backup software and the backups that you have on one of our appliances, whether it's a physical appliance or a virtual appliance. And what does it do? It provides enterprise IT and DevOps instant access to production data. It allows you to spin up at a data at a recovery point that you've captured. And you can spin up to test applications. You can spin up full labs for tests if you want to, for any type of business function that you might have, all this with no impact to the production environment. So how does it work? We're using backup data. So that reduces those production copies. It's taking data off of the less expensive storage. It's going to cost you less. It can, and it allows you to do things that maybe you're not doing today simply because of a cost constraint. It can orchestrate instant recovery of on-demand labs. So if you have an organization or a group in your organization that requires kind of an on-demand lab, hey, we want to test a new software release or we want to test a patch, you can spin that up for them in an on-demand lab. And it can isolate that lab for production so that it has no impact on your production data or your production performance. It's isolated from that. You can control the lab access to key stakeholders so that the only people who see it or are able to use it are those that need to see it. It can support both physical and virtual environments. So you can do this with Unitrends. You can do it with VMware VMs, with Hyper-V VMs, with physical Windows servers using our Windows Instant Recovery capability. And then it requires the Enterprise Plus license. So if you're using the Unitrends software as backup software, it's the Enterprise Plus license that has this the automated provisioning, our copy data management functionality built into it. And you can have the Enterprise Plus version of the Recovery Series appliance be able to take advantage of this particular feature. So what's the benefit to you? And here, this is a quote from one of our customers who's taken a look at it and been able to, who understands what it's doing. And the quote's pretty simple, right? Other teams can test their application updates and run complete intensive reports without waiting for labs to be ready or the cost of additional storage infrastructure. The fact that you can use our instant recovery capability to be able to spin up labs manually or on a scheduled basis is a lifesaver for you in regards to time and just the effort that it typically would take to do this for one of your or one of the groups in your organization. Okay. So here's some examples of what people are going to be doing, right? They might be doing data integrity checks on their data. They mount a database and go access that database. You know, screenshot verification. Those are things that we've seen other of our competitors can do that. But that doesn't really tell you if the application works very well. And from a Unitrends perspective, you get to the point where now we can do application analytics, and that's what we want you to be able to do with the copy data management functionality that we build into our product. So what automation technology is required to do this? Boot order sequencing for interior applications. And what that basically means is that you may have multiple systems that you need to spin up in this lab, but often you need to spin them up in a way, in an order that allows the applications to work properly. So for example, you may have a domain controller come up first, you have other servers come after that, and then you have your application servers come up last, right? So you have the ability to build those boot orders and set it up any way you want so that the systems that you want to test in your lab come up in the order that's required. Once they're up, if you're doing disaster recovery testing, right, or if you're doing backup, if you just want to test your backups, you want to do that in an application-specific integrity verification. It's not enough just to know that a virtual machine can power on or that a Windows server can power on. You have to test the application that's sitting on that machine. Is it able to communicate with the other systems that are in that virtual lab that you've created or that virtual sandbox? They need to be able to do that. This is just a short list well, it's actually an incomplete list of the applications that you can automatically test using the Unitrends, this Unitrends functionality. It can go into Microsoft SQL Server, for example, and query a database if you needed to do that. It can test a web application. You can do custom scripts to see if the systems are running the way they need to be running. So these are things that allow you to test for disaster recovery. Finally, from what automation technology is required, network automation to isolate from production. This is probably one of the more critical pieces, right? It's one thing to be able to spin systems up, but if it's not isolated from your production data, you're going to have conflicts, you're going to have problems, it's not going to work properly. So you have the ability to set up your test labs. You can set up a recovery network, a test network. You can do that virtual network assignment during the boot process. You can do network remodeling, and you can re-IP VMs if you need to access the virtual machine as it's booting up and put a different IP on it. You can do that and it can be done before it attaches to the network, so it would not present a conflict, right? So this is functionality built into the product, into the feature that's going to benefit you as you use this product. And finally, if you're using this for disaster recovery, one of the things that, or disaster recovery testing, one of the things you need is to be able to get reporting for your stakeholders. Can you meet your recovery point objectives? Can you meet your recovery time objectives? Late last year, there was a study that was released, and it was a survey of organizations out there, IT administrators, and the survey questions asked things around disaster recovery and if these organizations actually had a disaster recovery plan, and if they tested that plan. And the bottom line is that about half of them actually had a disaster recovery plan, but only about less than half of those actually tested their disaster recovery plan. So what it came out to was somewhere around 20% of the organizations out there actually tested disaster recovery plans. Now, there's a reason for that, right? The reason was that it either took too much time, took too much effort. They didn't want to do it over the weekend. Maybe they didn't know how to do it properly, or they didn't have the infrastructure to do a good test. And then some people don't want to know the results because they'd have to report them up to their management, and they don't know what the results are going to be. With the Unitrends copy data management tools that are built in our recovery assurance capability that's now built into our product, you not only can you orchestrate and schedule these tests that we're talking about to be able to use the backup data to do this type of testing, but you can orchestrate, schedule, and it'll report to you on whether or not you can meet the recovery SLAs that you've set. You'll get your recovery point actuals, you'll get your recovery time actuals, and you'll be able to get that in an email format. They put it up on on the dashboard on the Unitrends interface, and you will know if you're meeting your if you're compliant with the SLAs that have been handed down by your management. And this is critical because, like I said, about 20% of organizations out there can do this. You will be able to do it using the Unitrends product on a scheduled basis where you don't have to do anything. You can schedule it for a Sunday, come in on a Monday morning, and have your report. So here's some of the core reporting tools that come with CDM from Unitrends. We have a dashboard widget. So if you look at our user interface, it'll show right in the user interface when the tests ran and the results of those tests. So you'll know just by looking at our interface whether or not you're in compliance with your SLAs. You get your compliance reports. You have recovery assurance reports to show you the actual time that it took to spin up an environment for disaster recovery purposes. You get live job progress, and you get job history. So you can go back in and look at the history of those jobs that ran and see if anything is changing over time. And all those reports can be emailed out to you as well, or emailed out to the stakeholders in your company. So you can go from not being able to do disaster recovery tests easily to being able to easily do this and have emails sent out on a scheduled basis where once it's orchestrated, you don't have to do anything but review when you get that email on a Monday morning. So here's a slide. It shows what would be typically kind of the 5 areas of backup and continuity. And most companies focus on protect, and they focus on recover. And protect is critical, right? I mean, you have to be able to protect all the systems that are in your environment. You may have virtual machines, you may have physical systems, you may have different operating system platforms that need to be protected. Obviously that's critical. Most backup companies can do that for you. The recover piece, another important part, right? How quickly can you recover? It's not so much can you recover, but it's how quickly can you recover? Do you have instant recovery capability? Do you have on-premises backups that you can spin up quickly? Do you have multiple recovery points that you can go back to? That's obviously the critical piece. How quickly can you recover? Those 3 items in the middle, secure, test, and detect, those are the 3 things that are most overlooked by backup and continuity providers. Let's look at these 5 items real quick. The protect. One of the things that Unitrends has done is we've introduced an SLA Policy Automation. We want to make the protect piece incredibly easy for our customers. So we've introduced a policy automation that controls the initiation and flow of backups and backup copies through a single, simple policy. So how does it work for you? You simply set an RPO, retention, and locations of backups and copies, and then Unitrends software does everything under the covers. It'll automate all the underlying processes. Okay. Then we'll analyze regularly using our data copy management tools. We'll analyze regularly if you're meeting your SLAs, and the product automates business level reports for compliance. So it makes it incredibly simple for you to use the Unitrends product to protect your environment and to set those SLAs that you want to meet. So here's some of the advantages that customers are talking about. For small, medium customers, it just makes it very simple. Most of them are telling us that they didn't even know what their RPOs or RTOs were until now, or they never set them because they had no way of knowing if they can meet them. Our enterprise customers, they can use the SLA Policy Automation to make sure that they're compliant with whatever regulations that they have to meet and with whatever SLAs are handed down by management. And this is a screenshot of the SLA policy configuration screen. This is how it's defined. This just shows you what you're able to do from a single screen. You set up a policy, you name the policy, you give it the recovery point objective that you want. It could be multiple times during the day if you want it to be. It could be once a day. It could be less if often. You tell it when the backup window should be. You tell what kind of backup copies you should have. Should you be centered offsite to a disaster recovery target? And then it gives you options to be able to set up your retention settings. Very simple, very easy to create the policy. You create the policy, and then you assign it to the assets that you want that policy to cover. And you can have multiple policies on there. You may have some Tier 1 assets that require recovery points frequently throughout the day. You may have other assets that maybe need backups just once a week. Bottom line is it makes it incredibly easy for you to go ahead and create these policies that you assign, and you know that it's going to allow you to hit the SLAs, the recovery SLAs that you have. Here's some of the things that people aren't looking at too much these days. Secure. Well, they are now, but they haven't been traditionally. And we like to call this a new world approach. Unitrans uses a hardened Linux backup appliance, and we like to, compare that to targeted susceptible Windows software. Most of our primary competitors, their data sits on Windows platforms. And you know that with ransomware, the malware, Windows is the more commonly attacked platform, and we're seeing that all around the world. Malware is a little bit different now than it used to be. The ransomware is a little bit different, where maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was more of a phishing exercise. Someone would click on a link, it would lock up a particular server or a desktop, and then they have to pay a ransom to get that get that unencrypted and released. Now it gets on the network and it's a worm. It goes through the network. It looks for vulnerable systems. It looks for high valuable assets that it can encrypt. And one of the things it's looking for is backup systems that are sitting on a Windows platform. And you see that in the news almost every week, where organizations cannot recover from encrypted ransomware backups that are sitting on a Windows platform. And that's why, from a Unitrans perspective, we believe that the hardened Linux backup appliance is a better choice for our customers. Test. We just went through this, right, with automated provisioning and recovery assurance using those data copy or the copy data management data from the backups, the ability to test that, to use it in a lab for all the things that we showed on that earlier slide, but more importantly from a backup perspective and continuity perspective, be able to test the recovery SLAs. That is something that is kind of Unitrans' secret sauce. It's something we've been doing for years. Now we have it built into our interface. We can do it through the interface. You can set up and you can be able to test compliance down to the application level and report on it. Detect. This is new. This is something that Unitrans introduced a couple months ago, and I think it's pretty timely. Proactive ransomware detection. We're using adaptive predictive analytics against backup data. Basically what we're doing is we do inline deduplication on the backup data that's coming into an appliance. We watch those blocks, and if we see anomalies in block change rates, we will alert that, hey, the conditions may be good for, that ransomware conditions maybe have been detected. I mean, that's one of the things when malware exists, that you see anomalies in block change rate. Unitrans is now tracking that for you, and we will alert you if we see it. Nice thing about it is if that happens, you have the ability with our copy data management to spin up systems that from recovery points before that anomaly and the block change rate presented itself. So you can easily go back to a point in time that is before the anomaly happened. And you can go up on our website, and we have plenty of customer success stories up there of our customers who are recovered from a ransomware attack simply by restoring a backup from a recovery point before the attack happened. And then finally, recovery. We talked about this a few minutes ago. It's not just recovery, it's how quickly can you recover. A couple things, right? Unitrends uses things called instant recovery, the ability to instantly recover VMware, Hyper-V, Windows servers. We have the ability to convert a Windows server to a virtual machine if you need to take that physical Windows server and recover it to a VMware VM or a Hyper-V VM. We have bare metal recovery of physical servers of many different operating system flavors, have the ability to recover the operating system back to that physical server. You don't have to do a full reinstall of everything. So all that's available to you for quick recovery. But what's even more important is you can use those test functionality that we talked about and be able to go out and prove that you can meet the recovery SLAs that you have. You can show your management that, hey, I can recover these systems in an hour. I can recover these systems in 17 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever the time is. You can show them how it's done. You can show them that you can meet your recovery point objectives and your recovery time objectives. We believe with all these things that we just talked about that Unitrends is adapting faster than any of the other vendors in our space. And you can look right here at these Gartner publications. Unitrends is the only solution recognized in the Backup Magic Quadrant, the DRAS Magic Quadrant, and the IT Resiliency Orchestration Market Guide that Gartner puts out. Right, so we're the only one that's recognized in all three of those Gartner publications. All right, so we got a couple more slides and we're gonna take some questions. I wanna ask you first, follow us on social media. That's the way you can get out, that way you can get our most recent up-to-date information. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on LinkedIn, you can follow us on Facebook and Spiceworks. But go out, watch us first on social media and get the latest information from Unitrends, read our blog posts. There's always a lot of good information out there, things that are industry specific and things that may benefit you with what you do every day. And finally, I said before we start taking questions that I was going to give you a chance to win a $500 Amazon gift card. I'm going to leave this page up here while we take questions, but go to that that page that's linked there. Sign up for our ransomware tech demo giveaway that's going to be held on Thursday, May 25th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and one attendee will win a $500 Amazon gift card. So thanks for listening. Let's open it up to questions. Kevin, do we have a few questions out there?
Yeah, Mark, we've had a few questions come in. There's still time to ask a question. If you want to do so, just type it into the bottom right-hand corner of the player, and we'll get to your question in no time. The first question is your copy data management solution a separate installation from your backup software?
No, it's a great question. And for those of you who know Unitrends, you know that for a number of years we had a product called Recovery, our Reliable DR, and it was a standalone product that allowed us to spin up environments and test disaster recovery and compliance. We've now integrated that into our software, so it's built right into our interface. It's not a separate product. It's not a separate installation. It's built into our interface, and you can use it for right through the same user interface that you do to schedule backups. So when you set up use that SLA policy scheduler, you're able to use that, and then you go right to the point where you can actually do the testing of those backups to make sure that you're hitting the SLAs that you've set.
Okay, next question is, what server platforms are supported by Unitrends copy data management?
Thank you. For today, it's going to be VMware virtual machines, Hyper-V virtual machines, and Windows physical servers. So it's really the same platforms that we support with our disaster recovery as a service product. We obviously have the ability to protect and recover quickly many other different platforms, Linux, Unix flavors, Zen server, but for the data copy management piece, VMware VMs, Hyper-V VMs, and Windows physical servers using our Windows Instant Recovery technology.
All right, the next question is, all I need is disaster recovery testing. Can those tests be scheduled?
Absolutely. That's a great question, and that's what that we talked about it earlier in the presentation, right? That only about 20% of surveyed companies who actually completed the survey, so it could be less than this, about 20% of the people actually test the disaster recovery because it's difficult, and for most people it can't be scheduled and done unintended. But with Unitrends you can set up you can orchestrate your disaster recovery test. You can schedule it, and then you get the report sent to you. It's not only does it display on the dashboard of your user interface or the Unitrends software, but it'll email you a report and it'll tell you whether or not you met the SLAs. But absolutely, it's scheduled. Once you orchestrate it, you can schedule it and you can run it, every day. You can run it once a week, once a month, whatever your organization requires.
Okay. Next question is, how do you actually detect ransomware, and how easy is it to roll back to the latest backup before the infection?
Yeah, what we're doing is we're watching, we're using our inline deduplication, so we're watching the block change rates on the backups that come in, where, we're intelligent enough, our software's intelligent enough to kind of know what to expect, and if there's anomalies in that block change rate. So it's a system that had been, protected previously, and now we're backing it up again, and we see anomaly in the block change rate where it kind of jumps at a degree that's not typical. At that point we'll alert that ransomware conditions may be present. Doesn't mean that there's going to be that absolutely is ransomware, but it certainly is something that you need to investigate to make sure that the malware is not present. But what that also allows you to do is, and you guys saw this with the WannaCry over the weekend. Obviously, that was all through the news, and you saw these hospital systems in the UK where they're basically shutting down their IT. They didn't have a quick way to recover. They were shutting it down. With Unitrends product, what you're able to do, and you can read these success stories up on our website, but what you're able to do is you see when that anomaly presented itself, and you can roll back to a point-in-time recovery simply right before that anomaly. If it turns out it was malware, once you isolate the server, you can roll back to a recovery point right before that, and use instant recovery to bring that system back online quite quickly, so that your end users are impacted for as little time as possible. If you want to validate or run some tests on that data before you actually put it out on the production environment, you have the ability to roll it into one of those virtual labs that we talked about, or sandbox, and you can go in and run security tests or validate that it's clean before you put it in a production environment. So the Unitrends solution makes it very easy to do that. Once again, we're not a solution that's going to stop malware from getting on your network, right? I mean, you got phishing exercises out there, you got the worm exploits, and that stuff is going to happen. And you have other ways to attempt to stop that. What we are is a solution that may detect that malware may be present before it's announced itself, and we have a solution that gives you the ability to recover quite quickly from a recovery point at a point in time that's before that malware entered the network. Okay?
Okay, next question is, does Unitrends plan to support sending backup copies to other Unitrends service provider partners?
Yeah, actually we already do that today, right? I mean, we have multiple options for you to get data off-site, and I think you've all seen that 3-2-1 protect design, where you have 3 copies of your data, 2 different types of media that the copy sits on, and 1 copy off-site. Unitrends makes it very easy to get that data off-site. You can send it to, we have plenty of partners out there that are providing managed services and co-location facilities. If in certain cases where you have the ability to copy your data to another Unitrends appliance, or in those locations, certainly we got the Unitrends cloud that I think today we have somewhere in the vicinity of 30 petabytes of data in our Unitrends cloud, where we not only can we provide infinite retention for customers who need that from a compliance standpoint, but we also give you the ability to use that as a disaster recovery location, so we provide disaster recovery as a service. Our partners provide disaster recovery as a service and in their data centers, some of them. And then you have the ability to send data to a private cloud. If you want to, if you have a second location, you want to put a Unitrans appliance, either physical appliance or virtual appliance in your second location, you have the ability to send copies of your data to that location. And then finally, you can use one of the hyperscale cloud providers like Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure as targets for your data. So plenty of opportunities to get data copied hot off of your offsite, and then we still also have the cold backup copies if you want to just move it to some sort of removable disk media and take it off-site that manner. Before you move to a cloud solution, you can still do that. You can even send it to tape. Okay?
Okay, the next one is, how quickly do VMs usually spin up in the cloud for DRAS?
We got a couple options, right? And this is something that's fairly new over the last 2 months. I know that some of you may have looked at the Unitrans DRAS offering in the past and said, boy, you know, I love that fact that it gives a 1-hour SLA, and that's our premium DRAS. We have a 1-hour SLA. You know, most times it's, you know, within minutes these systems are up and running, but we give a 1-hour guarantee, the premium DRAS. But for many of our customers, they didn't need a 1-hour SLA, so now we also offer a bundled DRAS offering, so that allows you to, it costs a little bit less, but it doesn't give the 1-hour SLA. It maybe spins up in 12 hours or 24 hours, slower. But for those who need that quick recovery, using the instant recovery capability of the Unitrans product, it's 1 hour or less is our SLA in our cloud, but it oftentimes is within minutes that that VM can be spun up and be used. And guess what? The recovery assurance software that we're talking about with our data copy management, our copy data management, you have the ability to test that. So whether it's in the Unitrans cloud with premium DRAS, one of our partners using their DRAS solution, or at your own private disaster recovery facility, or even on your on-premises backup appliance, you have the ability to test the recovery time and get your recovery time actual. So you can orchestrate a test, run it, and it'll tell you how quickly your group of virtual machines spun up when you run that test. So very simple, very easy to know. And that's one of the things that we talked about, right, is that most vendors, they talk about disaster recovery and they talk about quick recovery, but they have no way to prove it unless you go through a long, kind of difficult disaster recovery test. They have no way to prove how long it truly takes. And they certainly don't have the way to schedule that test so that it runs on a regular basis so that you can watch for changes in the time that you see from recovery times and recovery points. Okay?
Okay, and then 2 more questions. One is, how do I buy copy data management from Unitrans?
Well, it's not a standalone product. It's actually included with our appliance, with our virtual, with our Unitrans backup software, the virtual appliance. You simply select the Enterprise Plus license on that, and then with our Recovery Series appliances, we have the Enterprise Plus Recovery Series appliance, our line of appliances, and it's included in that as well. So it's part of our product, not a standalone product.
Okay, and then the last question, and you may have touched on this already, but how does Unitrans verify that my backups are working so that I can recover when I need to?
Once again, traditionally from a traditional backup vendor, oftentimes, and Unitrans has the ability to do this as well. Oftentimes, what they're doing is they're just validating the backup data as it comes in. They're doing, they're doing a verification as the data is being laid down to disk during the backup process, and so they can verify that everything is being backed up in a consistent manner. But you know what? that's really not going to show you how quickly it can recover or if it can recover. Traditionally, what most IT administrators would do is they would schedule time during a month where they'd go out and randomly test backups to see if it's recoverable, just to make sure that that they can get that data back down on an appliance or on a server. With the Unitrends, with what we talked about today, with our recovery assurance product, our copy data management capability, you can take those backups now and you can orchestrate and test recovery with them, so that you not only can you do that on a scheduled basis like we've talked about a number of times, but it'll report back to you your recovery time actuals. So you can set up an SLA, how quickly you want it, but then you'll get your recovery time actuals on a scheduled basis, and it'll verify to you that you can meet the SLAs that you have set. And guess what? You can have multiple tests. So maybe it's one group of systems that you test one week, another group of systems that you test another. You can have multiple jobs that are scheduled different times, so that you can kind of roll through your data in that manner. You don't have to test everything at once. You can create multiple jobs and have those random tests scheduled and done automatically for you, and it'll report back to you via email reports, and it'll show up on the dashboard of the user interface, so you'll know that you are or you're not in compliance. Okay.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Mark. We're just about out of time here, so as a reminder, this webinar was recorded, and you'll receive an email with a link to the on-demand version within the next day or so. Also, we'll contact the $100 Amazon gift card winner via email today, and we'll also put that in the follow-up email as well. Thanks again for joining us, and we really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.